Hi, this is Velma Blann. I am a doctor in philosophy, all but dissertation. I want to present a literature review and to discuss the proposal that I propose as my future dissertation thesis attainment. The proposal were written May 29, 2011, where I studied quantitative methods 1 and quantitative methods 2 to just pinpoint what I wanted to do once I graduated at Nova Southeastern University, what I wanted to do in the community to help those people who I felt needed the most. And I chose the youth crimes, and the reason I chose youth crimes because when I first moved in Lauderhill, Florida, I was surprised by a youth who pulled a gun on me as I left my home to walk to Albertson's grocery store. And I screamed and I backed up and he put the gun away and I guess he decided not to shoot me. And with that, I wanted to share that with you as one of the reasons why I believe the communities surrounding Broward County, Palm Beach County, and Dade County might need to update some of the intervention programs and find ways to help these students. Thus, I do know that we do have bullying programs available in many public schools now, but I just believe that with the numbers that I found during my research before I decided to choose the dissertation proposal, that there could be some additional things that I might find while I research. In order to attain the dissertation thesis, I would then need to go out in the community a little bit more. I am looking forward to the online writing thesis. I did register for it, but the committee chair, Dr. Eleanor Facilitators, I don't know if she went out of town or whatever, but she did not download the A7 chair form. And with that being according to the syllabus, I was not able to stay in the online thesis writing until she downloaded that form and registered me for the class. Okay, I'm going to begin. It is now, I give it the time, let me take a look at my computer here, excuse me. It's 4:42 a.m., 3/19/2015, and that the syllabus did mention during my dissertation proposal that I needed to defend the dissertation within 6 months, and that I did receive my tuition fund private alternative loan, and I was paid that money, over $15,000. I must make an attempt to defend it online, that I am a doctoral online, postdoc, pass the qualifying exams, and I am ready to go out in the community and work as a practitioner. Here is the dissertation prep that I submitted. And the dissertation prep has a photograph image in the front. Nova Southeastern University, School of Humanities and Social Sciences. Let me bring the color for you so you can see. I did mail it in, and once you receive it, please send me a return email so that I would be rest assured that you received it and I won't have to keep emailing it backwards and forward to you. Okay, I did try in group with other Ph.D. Candidates that many of us are living out of state, and I am local here. I'm in Lauderdale Lakes. I live very close to the campus. I was not able to group with many of the candidates so that we can maybe share our ideas together and work together and finding ways on how we can group together maybe in the future and maybe start a business. And that's one of my prospects in life, is to open up a business. I did launch Blann's Women's Resource Center, and what I mean by launch is I designed the program and I did receive coaching from Dr. Nanny. And that's one of my future businesses that I want to receive funding. And I do understand that a small business administrative loan might be feasible because funding is not available right now. I did check the websites, Department of Justice, Washington, D.C., and there had been funding available, but it ended, like I say, right before President Obama was reelected in 2008. So I did do research on how to get funding, but I wanted to respectively speak with Dr. Judith McKay, because she, according to her biography, she has some connections to the Department of Justice in finding ways on how to help graduate students get funding. And I wanted to, just visit her class, some seminar RI, and get some more training on that, or to just get her advice as a committee advisor to help me with the funding. But it's very important. I am going to need the funding. Okay, what I'm going to do is I did send proposals out to, invitation proposals out to Dr. Duckworth, Dr. Berna, Dr. Georgia Kapalis, and Dr. Judith McKay. Dr. Berna at first said that he was very happy to help me, to advise me, but then something came up and he emailed me and said that he no longer had the time. So there, due to many of the professors that I did speak with while I was studying dissertation prep during the fall, right, September 19, 2014 through the end of November, I was not able to get the proposal to the professors because, according to the syllabus, the students were instructed to not give the full proposal, that Dr. Bastidas will offer the proposal when she meet with you before we set a defense date. So there had been some things going on since 2013 with me, a lot of misunderstandings. I am an online doctoral fellow right now. I registered in April 20th, 2009. I was accepted by Dr. Sweedler as a doctoral student. So I think we may have some misunderstandings about my academic status there at the university. I was recommended by Dr. William July from University of Phoenix, a multicultural psychology professor, and he also earned a degree in political sciences, I believe a master's or undergraduate degree, and he was my professor at University of Phoenix. I was also recommended by Dr. Adam Castleberry, and he also taught me the master's science psychology program there. And I had another recommendation by David Taylor, who was a master's science graduate, and he in fact was my team lead with many of the learning team projects we did together. I stood behind him, assisting him or working together, helping those master students that were on our teams, team A, B, C, D, just working diligently together to reach our goal outcomes when we are working together and completing assignments for team projects. Now, what I want to go over is that I didn't get a chance to hear from many professors because there something came in between my movement with the online dissertation thesis, because, as I mentioned, Dr. Eleanor Bastidas did not download the A7 chair form. I did download a form that showed my grade was PR for progress for the qualifying exam. I submitted it 3:12 a.m. on September 19, 2014. And I checked the syllabus, and it meant that that's progress, that I can resume the program to move forward in the dissertation thesis online writing. I also received a passing score for the dissertation prep, and that card 7901, Professor Bastidas, November 20th, 2014, is when I began my article, bibliography, article research, to get myself set up in the library, to understand the tutorials, so that when it is time for me to begin writing the dissertation thesis, that I would have some understanding of our library resources at NovaCat, and also just to get assistance and get more familiar with the professors over there. What I want to do is I did email all of the professors I invited as my committee advisors an outline. And the outline that I emailed you, there is a heading on the outline, and the outline heading is urban conflict to the correlation of urban size and conflict intensity. And the reason I wanted to send you an outline, let me just make sure that I have this here in order, is because I wanted you to follow with me. Here it is. Follow with me and be able to ask me questions once I meet you in person about what I wanted to do and why did I choose this project. Now, the urban conflict to the correlation of urban size and conflict intensity, the experience review is what this is, intervention and program analysis. And then I submitted it on October 30th, 2014 to Dr. Facilitators. But I did propose the original proposal May 29, 2011, while I studied and I was trained in statistics and statistical reasoning, standard deviation, being able to understand the Anova, being able to understand the critical Z points and the critical T points. And what I did is I sent an email out to Dr. Berner, Dr. McKay, Dr. Duckworth. Dr. Georgia Kapopoulos did not respond to my invitation, so I just sent those out. How I began my project is that I noticed is that me being from Dania, Hollywood, Florida, that we had a significant increase in crime rates in Broward County, but in Hollywood. And I was suspicious of that because I am from that area in comparison to Dade County and Fort Lauderdale. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to dig a little bit more and to get accurate information on how I will be able to find the Anova and distribution of those three counties, Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach, so that I'll be sure that I would not waste my time on trying to find out the comparisons in crime indexes between the three counties. The research aimed to examine urban youth class structures, lived experiences in comparison to rural and suburban youths. And I used Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology, 2006. And my first bullet point, it was seek to weigh the pros and cons of urban youth crimes and reduce the problems they are experiencing at home on school grounds. And I meant that the experiences is mainly truancy. And I did, given that as an example given, I do believe that our backgrounds, because I grew up in urban neighborhoods, and I noticed that when we grow up in urban neighborhoods, we have we desire specific things like hierarchy of needs, basic resources, basic things that we see someone else may have and we can't afford it. So many times that our teens begin to bully one another because we do not have the same type of, drive the same car or live in the same house as our friends at school. And it's just, I think it has a lot to do with the reason that teens are bullying each other is because they are not raised by both parents, and also because of living in poverty. There are financial problems in the home, or single parenting and not having someone to properly supervise them. So what I indicated is a program analysis objective aimed to reinforce proactive component of organization behavior. And that's what I believe that will help aim to reinforce teens who may have problems in school and problems at home and on the school grounds, and might find some ways to leave school as an excuse, or because they join gangs, or because they just, having problems at home and been discouraged. And then I brought bullet point 1B, overall goal, envision intervention program strategies and conflict management to reduce urban youth crimes and measure associations of events in nearby neighborhood youth. And so the overall goal of the project that I want to design in the future to open is to open 3 youth centers, Broward County, Dade County, and Palm Beach County. And to bring into these centers fine arts, whereby they will be able to find and identify themselves with either music, with either sports, or dance. And there's industrial arts. There are also being able to play an instrument, and as well as to receive coaching from male leaders, coaches within the center, and as well as female leaders, because it will be a boys and girls club, similar to a boys and girls club, but these teams will be sectioned off in different places within the center to make sure that the boys and the girls are not being distracted by each other, but they are there to receive extracurricular activities after school, or within the time on the weekend, Saturday, or within the time that if they're graduates, high school graduates, that they would be able to be there, not only for fine arts, but for educational training. I have V Blann tutoring. I want to bring in certified teachers to work with these girls who might fail high school programs, and they will be able to earn a GED. So I believe, as I put here, an overall goal and vision intervention program, strategies, and conflict management to reduce urban youth crimes and measure associations of events in nearby neighborhood youth. Next, bullet point 2, overview of urban conflict research. The purpose of such research is a greater understanding of the urban teen as seen from the unique viewpoint and principal source of data for analysis. And I received that information from Journal of Consultant in Clinical Psychology, and again, 2006A. An examination of traumatic events related to urban teens' growth and development surrounding poor behaviors. And that would be to examine their traumatic events. Now, with that, we're going to need a psychologist in the center. A licensed psychologist or a school psychologist or someone who works in the field of psychology, because I believe that social psychology is very important for us during the development stages from junior high school, because once we leave junior high school, it's an experience that I had. You begin to face challenges and peer pressure and things like that, and you might want to have a relationship and you're too young and you will not be given the opportunity to date. So these are the challenges that I believe that having a Boys and Girls Club is to be sure that they're focused on why are you here? What is it that you're here to enjoy? Are you here to attend the center to learn for educational purposes, or is that you're just here for fun and games after school, or you want to become a member and maybe one day become a volunteer, and then when the funds are in, and if you're old enough, if you have graduated from high school and you're in a junior college program, then perhaps you'll be able to come back and join us and become gainfully employed. So these are ideas that I have for the boys and girls programs, and I really think that it would help the communities where we're faced with high crimes. Next, 2B, the conflicts are surrounding poor behaviors such as bullying, truancy, juvenile delinquency, and illegal criminal activity, as I just mentioned, to be sure that the youth that I am speaking about, that I want to advocate for, to find ways to change them in regarding them, getting them organized in their human behavior to assess themselves, to be able to bring youth from prisons like Department of Justice for juvenile detention centers. Once they're let out on some type of program, that I would have these youth come in so that they will not become reoffenders of crimes. So I'm also targeting this population as well. Proposed research plan is the fundamental task aims for accuracy that assumptions were made. And these assumptions were made is that we will find that in a community of youth, in comparison to our suburban and metropolitan and locations, that youth who are raised in inner cities may face post-traumatic stress disorders, or may become discouraged and quit school, or may even become child killers and because they join gangs, if we do not get these youth into a program so that they will be able to face changes by receiving school mediator counseling, or by just showing them love and giving them something and finding out what is it that you like to do. And then just probe these kids and find out what is it that you would like to do, and as well as to make sure that if they are interested in something, that they're properly guided and that they're not given any negative reinforcement, that they are properly guided in a positive manner with someone who has in fact experienced the same situation in their background as a male who may have been in gangs or who may have committed crimes, who may have come out of prison and now they're on parole and they want to be able to help come to my youth center through a program to help these teens who may have been in prison, but juvenile, I'm sorry, and were released. And so now I would get someone like that to work with these kids. So there are also not only boys committing crimes, but we have girls who are committing crimes. So then we will also have women to sit down, and it's one of the reasons why I believe counselors are very important, because we will have women that would be able to sit down with them as well, who are skilled in supervising young women who may become pregnant by accident and just feel discouraged and do not want to return to school. And so she, in fact, would be able to come, once she enrolls in an adult program to get her GED, after school program, and we'll be able to find something that she likes to do. Sewing classes, cooking classes, become teacher's assistants, or to become, learn about child care education, to maybe want to become a nurse or nurse's aide, or anything that will encourage this young lady that she can find new ways and to have a successful outcome from whatever that she experienced in her past, with being faced with youth crimes or being faced with misdemeanors and charges like that. Next, I will have before testing the hypothesis, an analysis of the sample group will be encouraged by unobtrusive direct relationships and observational studies. So this is the fundamental task that I aim for accuracy, that assumptions were made. These assumptions that urban teens suffer higher levels of post-traumatic stress than nearby youth and face more crimes. And these nearby youths are youths who live in different locations in a better neighborhood, suburbs, and metropolitan business, residential, commercial neighborhoods, or youths who come from wealthy backgrounds, and they seem not to have problems. But then, you know, they'll be able to work well with these youths, and the same people that we're assuming that they are not able to face or be competitive against, these same youths are also faced with crimes, in which some have more crimes than the other. And the assumption is that the youth in the inner city has more crimes than the other youth in the suburbs and in the metropolitan area. So before testing the hypothesis, an analysis of the sample group will be encouraged by unobtrusive direct relationships and observational studies, and that's being out on the field. The most common statistics testing used in linear regression and correlation coefficients are random samplings. The literature review, the proposed research study is an experience review and resolution conflict, intervention, and program analysis of emotional distress among urban teenagers. Now, this is another bullet point, because when students who suffer high levels of post-traumatic stress disorder, they become emotional. So then what did I do during my teaching and training with Dr. Berner is I designed peace conflict studies to help youth or to help students who in the past were youths be able to deal with emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is that you will be able to understand the two different types of conflicts, conflicts A and conflict C. And these conflicts, conflicts are conflicts that may arise anytime, anywhere without your partaking in those conflicts, because we are faced with different people around us in the external environments who in fact may not see us as a person that they want to be friends with or want to have any relationship with. So it is when we need to set our differences aside and be able to communicate with effective interpersonal skills. And because many of us, we come from different backgrounds, and we may not want to have relationships with different ethnic groups, and there are social groups who are homogeneous groups, who in fact are groups that many of the people of color has always had to accept as being above their level in education and in not being qualified enough or to be smart enough to be in the same classroom and things like that. So these youths may feel discouraged, but what I want to do is to find those youths. What is it that we can find to make people of color feel rest assured that I feel I can be competitive just as any other culture group who comes from a background of suburb, grew up in the suburbs, and or any white groups or European groups who are homogeneous groups, social groups that may practice cultural avoidance. And that's because maybe the inner cities has given them something to refrain from. And so it's one of the reasons why many of the homogeneous groups will practice cultural avoidance and will appear not to want to sit at the same table, group with you in teams in school, things like that. So this is one of the reasons why I think that the program that I want to open up for 3 different communities is to bring a positive environment with our youth, because they're faced with so much negative and so much repressive feelings and having to suppress their own behavior in order to not get into fights. And then sometimes it doesn't work, they still get into fights. It's just to reduce youth crimes, reduce the murder rates, reduce the rape, and all of the things that are in the categories involved, to show love to these youth that outside of the home, where you may receive love at home too, but outside of the home, you are also welcome to come and join my youth center. And I want to, as well as to get additional training and coaching from Boys and Girls Clubs, other resource centers out there for youth that may be grassroots organizations, have been in business for many years, have information for me about funding. They'll be able to refer me if they're not able to help me, to meet with people, to get more training, to go out and do workshops. And so this is something that I intend on doing. But first, just to get it out in the community, one would then need to get permission from the city advisory boards, get permission from the review boards at the university, and to as well as to receive the faculty one-on-one discussions and training and meetings with committees once committees are formed. And so this is where the area where I am now is trying to form a committee, trying to get people to know who I am, to stop reflecting upon people as me being a bad person, because I know where I come from, and I know that I can get along well with people, but sometimes my weaknesses is not being able to work under someone who have given me an indication that they're not qualified as I am. The examination strives to pinpoint the causal factors which reinforce behaviors due to peer groups and truancy, and I did mention that. Find root of team disciplinary problems in all regions. And 5, elaborating bivariate tables. In elaborating bivariate tables, measure the pairs of multivariate that display the relationship between x, y, and for each value of z. So then we will do the Anova. Now, primary concern of the study is focused on bivariate relationships, and these bivariate relationships are urban teenagers and subgroups. The multivariate statistical techniques provide the researcher with a set of tools by which additional information can be gathered. Now, I intend on receiving that additional information at NovaCat, or to go in and receive help from the librarians and for the causal interrelationships which will be probed and which are probed. And I received that information from Healy, 2009, 2005, page 402 and 412. And this is the book right here. It's the Statistics, a Tool for Social Research, 8th edition. My research questions. The addresses four major things. One, the increase of poverty in urban inner cities, a causal factor. Urban teens face trauma with implications for potential growth and distress. Two, does dysfunctional environments add to other related behavior problems in urban youth outnumbering other locations? Three, does suburbanization and socioeconomic crisis add to additional problems of homelessness, unemployment, and eagerness for teens to survive? And four, is it true that sexual abuse and molestation a factor in sexual disorientation and promiscuity in youth? Now, the reason that I brought that question up because I did mention in my in groups that there has been, and within these three counties, Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach, sexual abuse regarding rape, regarding children who might have reported molestation, or they're in this, they were then transferred over to a center like a foster home or something like that, or a grandparent, or an aunt or uncle. So these are very good research questions, and I reviewed them as being four major themes to my dissertation. Next, we have 6, overview of following chapters, the background, post-traumatic events. I received that from DSM-4, 1994, Poverty and Children's Adjustment to Economic Crisis, Luthar, 1999. And in your packet, you will find the bibliography and the resources on that. Next, dysfunctional environments, abuse, and neglect. Urban youth correlations of truancy. Day 2003, I received that information from Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, 2001. And in 7, the hypothesis development. The final analysis, a regression line will be used from the data received to test the hypothesis and interpret the strength for significance and direction. 2, the qualitative would lead to a greatly expanded range of researchable questions to narrow it down. 3, the conceptualization of the conflict is to influence urban teens in self-esteem, positive peer relationships, and self-concepts to reduce post-traumatic stress and discouragement. And these are assumptions that I believe, according to just my life experience growing up as a teen, that having self-esteem, it gives you an identity, and you're able to work closely with those who have similar goals as you in whatever is it that you want to join other groups with. So I believe self-esteem, it helps a person to be able to not only feel good about themselves, but confident in achieving goals and being more competitive, and not having a low self-esteem, and feeling that they are disassociating themselves with groups that might be able to tutor and help them with their problems that they might have weaknesses with. 4, theoretical and practical implication. The implication for this research is to use tests studied in clinical practice and statistical data shared from child welfare reports. Next, law enforcement statistics. And last, psychological assessment resources. Because being able to receive these theories from the practice, the implications of the assessment, to test the studies would be that we will have something in the background from another team that might have had the same scenario or conflicts arise, and whatever was successful with a high number of in-groups, then this statistical data will be shared from those reports, and they're usually found from child welfare reports. These are the HHS, Human Health Services, and from social workers. And not all the time, we might not get good news from social workers, but we depend on those reports because they're the men and women who are out there faced with so many negative feedback, and from sometimes, in fact, the children who are molested and abused or raped and even killed. It's that their workload is so high and backlogs, and so sometimes they may not get to these kids in time to transfer them to another foster home. Next, conclusion. I concluded on this in the outline, and that is bullet point 8. A, the literature review sought evidence in the United States many urban youth are still yet failing because of racial oppressions. And I did mention that. It's not only oppressions, that when you feel like you're repressed in your government because you're having to not given the same rights as other people, and you feel like you notice that you're being discriminated against, you feel like you're repressed, not by your government, but by your constituents and by those people who you are noticing are receiving fair treatment, and you're right there, and when it comes down to your needs, you're not given the same treatments. So this too can trigger a hypertensive, emotional negative that will cause a child or to feel withdrawn from groups because they're not treated fairly. And that's part of the literature review. It's a sought evidence in the U.S. that many urban youths are still yet today. Thus, many laws has changed. Thus, there are constitutional rights, educational rights that to find out whether or not youth are still yet failing because of racial oppressions. And when you hear racial oppressions, yes, we're talking about ethnic groups. One of the reasons that the minor I've chosen a concentration level to sought the degree in philosophy is my minor is culture ethnic conflict, and so this would be in the area race and research. Next, B, findings or arguments over the past decade. Now the findings or arguments made by the Committee on National Urban Policy and National Research Council in 1999. The awareness of conformity to the concentrated poverty rates and increasing structure of urbanization. Now, when we have poverty rates and single parenting, now we're not only, my program not only touch basing with the teens, I would then need to have have a positive relationship with the parents. Because if this child who are faced with so many dilemmas and truancy and bullying and being in gangs and comes to my center with that same behavior, then I need to have a crisis intervention team. So that will make sure that this child that come in there, maybe from a detention center, will be, like I mentioned earlier in my announcement, that we will have someone to coach them that has gone through these type of experiences, will be able to be sure that I won't have to deal with children that I may not be able to communicate with, because I'm not, I may not have the understanding of the best ways of approach in managing boys who may come from very serious crimes, backgrounds of very serious crimes, boys and girls. Next, one, results of the NRC 1999, and that is the National Research Council, articulated on discussions that did not prove urban living are suffering the most, and they would be otherwise, and neither indicated living in urban inner cities made any difference at all to crime and other related issues. 2, new data necessary since last statistics. The last statistics that I drew up, the crime index statistics in Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach County, Department of Justice 2011. Now I did check some reports before I came on live, and we do have reports in, but they're only 2012. I'm very surprised. So it looks like crime rates may not have been completely quantified or completed in the statistical methodologies and separating these crime categories, so that statisticians will be able to examine and review it, and will be able to come up with better result findings. So the new data necessary since last statistics, that urban youth are reluctant and defiant toward law enforcement, school officials, and parents, which are factors they are failing. Okay, so if the youth are defiant and reluctant to follow the civil authority instructions of civil authority and school officials and parents, then someone are failing. And so this type of person coming in my center most likely will come from a Department of Justice, detention centers. And again, I would make sure that this person will be properly assimilated and placed in an environment with youth who are coming from the same backgrounds. And then after human assessment, then I would have the boys and girls coming from high crime areas to be able to join those youth who are maybe had misdemeanors, smaller crimes, truancy, things like that, bullying. Because when we want to to open up a youth center and bring in youth child killers, that is something that I would in the future re-examine, because it may be a little bit too much for me, but that's just a thought. That's just a thought for me. And last, ethnic groups studied in this proposal: blacks or African Americans, Hispanics, Mexicans, and Caribbean island naturalized citizens of the United States. And the reference bullet points I gave on page 30 in the packet that I sent in, that I submitted to Dr. Facilitators before the end of class as my assignment, and it goes through page 32. Okay, well, maybe I should just call out. We have American Journal of Community Psychology, American Psychiatric Association, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, that's DSM 2004, Baker, Sigmund, and Nugent 2001, Truancy Reduction, Keeping Students in School, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Next, Bateman and Quant 2006, the Proactive Component of Organizational Behavior. And the topic was a measure and correlates. Retrieved on October 30th, 2014 from onlinelibrary.wiley.com. And I have just received instructions from Dr. Facilitators before completing the dissertation prep, says that we are now to visit the Nova Cat Library and to work on using the library resources on campus or online. On campus, if we are on campus at the time, residential, or doing the online dissertation writing thesis on campus, or online Nova Cat, to work with the librarians in there. I forgot her name, and to get more help on finding more valid resources. Next, Black and Chris Nakamar, Children in Low-Income Urban Settings, Interventions to Promote Mental Health and Well-Being is a topic by the American Psychologist, Volume 53, Chapter 6, pages 635 through 646. Next, Committee on National Urban Policy, 1990, National Research Council, Inner City Poverty in the United States, edited by Lawrence E. Lynn and Michael McGeary, Washington, D.C., National Academy of Sciences. Next, Day, 2003, the author of New Urbanism and the Challenges of Designing for Diversity, Journal of Planning, Education, and Research, Volume 23, number 183 through 95, and that number is edition 1. Ellis, 2009, authored study, Childhood Sexual Abuse, Often a Factor in Sexual Disorientation, Dakota Voice, Exposing the Pernicious Lie. And I retrieved that data on March 21st, 2011 from dakotavoice.com, Study Childhood Sexual Abuse, Often a Factor in Sexual Disorientation. You'll find that link. Sometimes these links are no longer available, but it is during the time when I did use the resources and research my dissertation proposal, the link was then available at dakotavoice.com. Hodgkinson, 2003, author, Leaving Too Many Children Behind, a demographer's view on the neglect of America's youngest children, Washington, D.C. Institute for Educational Leadership. Next, Lorber and Farrington, author, 2000 year, Young Children Who Commit Crime, Epidemiology, Development Origins, Risk Factors, Early Interventions, and Policy Implications. And that's epidemic. We have epidemic development and different origins, and risk factors will give us indicators on how we might be able to interpret data. And in my dissertation, I did find some local reportings on the actual highest crime rate in between the years 2013-2014 in Broward County and only I found, and 88.91, and that's my Wolfram Alpha. I came up with 88.91, in which 89% of the crimes between the years of 2013 and 2014, in fact, maybe 2012 to 2014, I just found a small update in the Lauderhill. That Lauderhill has increased to 89%, and it matches my Wolfram. And so that's something that I found as a feminology research that can be updated once I'm able to get a defense date in before the committee or board that will at the time will be available to work with me or to hear me out in person. I'm offering you this because my deadline, this live video, because I'm an online doctoral fellow, and my deadline is 8:59 a.m. this morning on the 19th of March 2015. So because I must defend within 6 months, just in case my video is accepted, that I am, right now producing, perhaps we will be able to use this as something that I will be able to be given an opportunity to defend in person in the near future. Next, we have Luthar, 1999, authored Poverty and Children's Adjustment, Developmental Clinical Psychology and Psychiatry, Thousand Oaks, California, Sage Publications, Inner City Poverty in the United States Commission on Behavioral and Social Sciences and Education. And behavioral science, social science, behavior deals with adjustment, personality adjustment disorders, personality adjustments, bipolar, things like that, or more in the mental health. But behavioral sciences only deal with the adjustment of personalities when someone or have a personality disorder. And that personality disorder does not require medication. It only requires human assessment. And that's one of the reasons why doing teaching and training, I chose Group Dynamics for Teens by author Daniel Levi, 2011. And that was a 3rd edition, I believe. And he has, in fact, updated that edition to either 4 or 5. I haven't looked into the book for a while because it was only an assignment I did in teaching and training with Dr. Burnham. However, behavior sciences deals with personality adjustment, bipolar, and what is the other one? Personality problems with antisocial personality, and also with manic depressant. All of these other personality disorders move more into a mental health in need of medication and antidepressants. But when you have a behavior, your behavior can be treated within your own self-humanization, and that means that you set your differences aside and we'll come together through meetings, mediation, or through just hearing each other out with having someone there to coach us so that we wouldn't fight. And this is where I believe that behavioral sciences are one of the minimal problems that people would have with their personalities. It's just being able to control yourself. And sometimes it's very hard when we are pushed, when we are bullied, when we are talked about, when we are annoyed, when we are manipulated, when we are as a person brought down to a level that we have never experienced, and to be told that you're never going to do this, you're never going to be that, and name calling, labeling. And with that, sometimes our tempers are very difficult momentarily, depending on where we are. Because being in a public environment, no one wants to confront an argument. But when you're in a professional environment, many of us will not behave in a professional environment as we would behave in our privacy of our own home. And that's one of the reasons why it's very important that I, think that is very important, that anyone who suffers of hypertensive or have some problems and issues does deserve their privacy in their own homes. If you are a student in the dormitories, then, there are house mothers, there are house fathers there, and then you would then, I think, I would believe that it's most fitting and feasible to then seek student affairs assistance. But off-campus doctoral fellows, I don't think that student affairs is going to help off campus, because when you're off campus, you're online, you're dealing with the professor, and you really don't have time to chat or argue with anyone during lectures, because your professor would then do what? Coach you and tell you to please do not interrupt while I'm lecturing. So we do not need student affairs when you're online. Now, next, I'm going to share with you the next bullet I have, resources, homicide. Now, the reason I chose homicide, because we do have child killers. And homicide, a psychiatric perspective, were given with Momquist, 2006, published, Arlington, Virginia, American Psychiatric Publishing. Martinez and Dukes, 1991, March, published, Ethnic and Gender Difference in Self-Esteem, Youth and Society. What's that, chapter 22? No, chapter 3. We have 22.3, chapter 22, third edition, 218 through 338. And next we have Malcolm, Meaningful Involvement in Instrumental Activity and Well-Being, Studies of Older Adolescents and At-Risk Urban Teenagers. It was published in 1990. Last, with several more, Warner and Weist, 1996, Urban Youth as Witnesses to Violence, Beginning Assessment and Treatment Efforts, Journal of Youth and Adolescence, Volume 25, third edition, pages 361 through 377. And last, Watson, Kelly, and Vedalon, published 2009, Examining the Meaning Attached to Mental Illness and Mental Health Services Among Justice System Involved Youth and Their Parents. And this is a Quality Health Research, Volume 19, 8th edition, 1087, page 1087 through 1099. And then also online students might have discussions, or might have questions, or might have team assignments, and are not able to come together. And so facilitation theories did help me when I studied with Dr. Rebecca McGuire. But there were, but sometimes professors are seeing the last person speak, or they are not really understanding what's going on, and then residential may call for a meeting. But I think that if a person was up before class and they were disturbed and they were disrespected, that I truly believe that that person should not have been called to meet with faculty members and student affairs, because that person were not the person that started these fights. And so I feel like this is just something that I'm mentioning. I am an adult. I am not a child. I am 57 years old. I am training. I'm studying conflicts analysis resolution. I am the resolution. I am not the conflict. And studying online, I've studied online since 2003. I know all of the rules. I have never had any problems in online. Have to be reported to anyone to conduct any type of counseling for me. I'm not employed at the university. I am an adult. I finance my education. I receive private loans. And anything that happens in the folder, our professors are watching these folders. And if my professor did not complain about any problems with me, I don't think that it would be, I don't think that I should have to see anyone outside of my professor, because, let me tell you why. My online agreements mentions that if I have any problems, that my professor would refer me over to speak with faculty. And if my professor referred me over to speak with faculty and I did nothing, then that means that there could be a problem with that. And I believe that fairness in both, me being at that time, fall 2013, earning a doctorate degree in philosophy, 76 credit hours, with 267 quality points. I was a professor at the time, and I think that we might need to change professors who have graduated having to sit to speak about things that I think that were not in the category of the conflict. Because a student that has a conflict on ground level, junior, undergraduate, juniors, are those students that I see as students may have behavior problems in the area of immaturity, or in the area of not feeling that these students are mature enough at the time, because they're usually between the ages of 19 through 24. And these are your students who are not considered independent because they are living at home with their parents and they're at ground level, or they are on campus and they are parent plus students, so they are not independent. But me being an independent online doctoral fellow who finances her education and has financed my education since 2003, I do not enjoy being treated as if I'm a student when at the time I was a doctoral fellow or a postdoctoral, completed the doctorate degree program, just pending to move forth into my dissertation or to take my exams. And that's one of the problems that I like to mention and I want you to get to know me about, because I want to go out and work in the community. I used to be a school bus driver, and I know how these teams are, and I understand that as an adult or as a leader or as someone appointed a leader or a professor or educator, that one must control their emotions when you are working as educators, but we must have 2 ground levels, because I don't think that anyone should abuse their authority or to feel that you have any grounds over me when I'm financing my education. I should be able to choose the professors I believe will be the professors I think are qualified to teach me, because when I graduate, I want to feel proud and honored to have graduated and have studied with that professor. And that's just one of the things that I pinpoint with, I discussed with the academic coordinator at the time when I needed to choose professors, because I'm paying for my own education. I'm not receiving direct funds. I'm receiving from private lender. These are not direct funds. That if I feel a little iffy about this professor, I have the right, if there are other professors I can choose from teaching the same program, to choose that professor. And that's one of the arguments that I had made, and I think that was a little bit misunderstood. Okay, so we're done with the experience review outline, and I want to close this because I don't want to make it longer than 1 hour. But let me just go ahead and get to the end. And just to briefly read over what I have here. Okay. My problem statement. Urban teens face trauma more often than suburban, rural, and metropolitan areas, with implications for potential growth and distress. Now, I got to prove that. I got to prove that. And I have proved it. I did the literature review, the introduction, and my introduction, and how I proved it is by performing correlations of truancy. And I have in the back here, let me get my my groups together. Here it is. My data methodology. Okay. Okay. The study presents the leading research questions in the following. It is likely that urban teens suffer high levels of post-traumatic stress and face more crimes and nearby use, with implications for potential growth and distress. So as I said, that is my argument, and my hypothesis is based on finding accuracy of the conflict. And emotional distress can lead to depression, suicide, and may cause youth to become violent and commit serious crimes throughout adulthood. The study is a mixed method, qualitative, quantitative factor of urban youth in pairs. And I use the age, respondents, class, culture for my hypothesis testing. And distribution, the distribution lines. Now, when we commit serious crimes, as I say, anyone committing serious crimes are then given criminal records. And youth usually start out with small petty crimes. But a youth who immediately commit a serious crime or homicide, then that youth will, I'm sure, will have to go through psychological testing. And then these indicators will have to go back to that youth's background and come on up to what really happened and to try to get that youth to self-confess. I have a Master's of Science in Psychology, so psychology, I believe, always relates to emotions, and also it relates to self-control. Because if you understand the cognitive thinking, you understand the adaptive situations that you might be placed in. What type of climate am I in? Do I feel uncomfortable? Do I believe that this is the class for me? Or shall I withdraw before the end of the class because I don't feel comfortable? So these are some of the things that might come up and questionable as a person, youth or college grad, feeling uneasy, a little anxiety, feeling that I might fail this class, so I better withdraw. And then, or I may not graduate from high school because I haven't shown up in class for quite a number of days. So these youth, I believe, should be pulled to summer school. If that youth did not miss, let's say, an abundance of days from class, will be pulled into summer school, and this way that youth will be encouraged to graduate with him or her class. Variables. If we take into account of the following hypothesis, the results may hold to be true. And the variables are economic crisis negatively affect the poor at higher levels than other class structures. An example, the higher the poverty, the higher would be stress, but the lower the poverty, the lower would be stress. And that's the variables I found. Operationalization of variables, increase of affected. Intervention programs is X, positively affect and take an account of Y. And the positive youth outcomes will be Y, and the intervention programs would be X. So if we have intervention programs for youth crimes, which has risen to a pretty high number in Broward County, then I believe that I trust that these youths, if they're dealt with and coached with a positively effect, and it will take an account of a positive youth outcome. Because no one wants to be pushed and bullied and told and yelled at. And sometimes when we believe that we are receiving help, we may end up with someone that we thought were nice, and then we get with them and now we're trapped and they're not very nice to us. So that can make the stress level reduce other behavior problems, as which I mentioned, an increase in self-esteem and moral values encourages positive student and youth incomes. An increase in low self-esteem and immoral values will discourage the student of which are positive, and then the outcomes might be failure. Now, the reduction of stress levels will reduce other behavior problems. In turn, will help reduce youth crime, which is Z. So X plus Y equals Z. And as long as we reduce stress levels in people, why are you stressed? What are you going through? We may have gone through divorce. We may have drug problems. We may have drinking problems, hidden agendas. We may have failed relationships. We may have lost a job. And so when we're dealing with stress levels and depressions and things like that, these are other behavior problems outside of problems that might not be problems with behavior, but there could be conflicts of which might become crisis. So how do we intervene with that is to sit through programs and to get help from those who we may feel in the family, in our own family, look up to as a good role model. Conceptualization of variables. The hypothesis is predicted to have a moderate to strong relationship and reduction of youth stress and behavior problems. Intervention comprehensive approach may be supportive when parents, schools, and community advocates are physically involved with youth to increase moral, value, and skill developments, in which education, fine arts, and youth empowerment activities should motivate teenagers to become responsible civil adults in the near future. And that's exactly what I had mentioned earlier, is as I had written when proposed the dissertation, to work on ways to reduce youth crimes in the inner city and to compare them to see if we have the same crimes in the suburban communities or metropolitan areas, is to be sure that we are involved as parents or as supervisors or coaches or managers with the youth in the center, and to give them a chance to prove themselves, like give like competitions and things like that. Competitions are like sports like track and field, softball, or football. You know, let them become more involved into more positive ways to find their identity, because once we have developed into an adulthood, then as an adulthood, then, you know, being a youth, we'll be able to bring those same feelings or those same desires with us and use them in the future, to be sure that we'll have something that we can use when we're stressed. And when I'm stressed, I like music. I like, you know, that's the things I do, are exercise. And so these are very good ways to measure levels of stress. The type of variables are nominal. Example given: gender, male and female, and then also race. And the inferential statistics of these type of variables, which are nominal, compare the distribution, central tendency, carry out separate tests to check the validity, and the margin of error of above comparison, in which dispersion measures are used. In the ordinal variables, example given, I use stress, class, crime, and behavior. That's the ordinal. Now the nominal are your gender, whether you're male or female, and your race. That's nominal. And then we compare the distribution, the central tendency. We carry out a separate test to check the validity, and in checking the validity, we have a marginal level of error and of above comparison, in which dispersion measures are used. And in those dispersion measures are used, an ordinal level are beyond scope, and that's high and low. And we may have a high level, which are considered red alert, and a low level, which are considered just green, is low or yellow. Racial interval, example given: age, intervention, youth outcome. And I did mention that as an optimization of variables. And the regression analysis will be used in order to find the ratio, the interval of how many crimes are committed in the inner city than there are in the suburbs. And I have a population crime rate. And a population and crime rate, I use a Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach. My N equals 7. The population in which I received this information was 1,234,202. Total index crime, 64,490. The index crime rating is 35,344. Ranking at 72, which were the total of the amount of ranks of cities divided by 7. I came up with a median of 10.28. The correlation coefficient of determination, results of 72. And I ended up, because I don't want to go through the decimal points, because it does require slopes and identification of the sums, but my coefficient of determination brought me x plus y, or x, my x, and then x minus x, y. I took the x equals 72, which is the total amount of the ratios and the ranks, and then I divided by 7, came up with 10.28, and then the y, which are the outcomes, we have 35,344, and then I divided that by 7, that came up with 5,049.14. So in order to understand that, you would have to study statistics, and I did have statistical reasoning in my master's in psychology class. It's one of the reasons why many of my cohorts were wondering, well, why did you do well in this class? Is because I had statistical reasoning. I had the basic statistical classes, which given me the basic fundamentals so that I would be able to move into the tool for social research. And it's very important to have the tool for social research, because you cannot propose any statistical coefficients or correlate with them if you do not understand what your racial determinants mean. The slope, I indicated B equal E, and I came up with, you see, that's in the clue. The hypothesis testing variables, excuse me. The test of significance, called the analysis of variance, Anova. The test can be used in a number of situations where previously discussed tests are less than optimum or entirely inappropriate. B, the extension of the t-test for the significance of the difference between two sample means. And next, logic of hypothesis testing as applied to Anova. And A, Anova test equal using the 5-step model as a guide and correctly interpret the results. Define and explain them. And when we define and explain them, the logic of hypothesis testing will be applied as Anova. And we will explain the concepts of population variance, total sum of squares between, sum of squares within, mean squares, square estimates, and post hoc tests. And you explain the difference between the statistical significance and the importance of relationships between variables. So in order for me to defend this proposal, I am going to need a lot more information from the current crime index statistics. I believe what I found that I can send further to the committee once you want to join me or hear more about it, or have more questions and concerns about what I'm doing if you misunderstand, is that we have here in Lauderdale Lakes and Lauderhill very high increase of crime rates, not only with youth crimes, but crime ratio between 12 years of age through 24. So that's a youth 12 years through 24. And I do show my B is, the B slope is 88.91. And I can send, what I'm going to do is attach a report to the 89% increase in Lauderhill. It was, according to what I proposed, Hollywood had the highest ratio, but now it's Lauderhill. And so the B, we're going to look back here right quick. Slope of the regression line. That's what that means, the slope of the regression line. So the slope, I'm going to explain that now. The slope of 88.91 means that for every unit change in X population, for every increase of 1 in the population rate, there was a change of 88.91 units in Y, which is the outcome. The number of index crime rates increased by 88.91. I use Healy, this book here, Statistical Reasoning. I also looked in it, but I didn't find the information that I wanted to use. But the Tools for Social Research book is what I used in the class. Healy 2009, 2005, which is was first published, page 374. And I indicated for additional information, see Dissertation Proposal, pages 9 through 12, which has the recordings of the least squares regression equation, the correlation coefficient, the coefficient of determinant, R2 and its relationship. That is the correlation coefficient. The coefficient of determinant is the R2 and its relationship with the correlation coefficient. The computations were made by Wolfram Alpha. Properties were diameter area, and parameter and visual representation are in the following. The unit of analysis, let's see if I have 2 minutes. I don't want to prolong this too long. Okay, all right. The unit of analysis, the state or institution meta-analysis. The research level will be conducted on a state level because it involves youth, public health, and families who have children with potential psychological disorders and behavior problems. So that is the research level of my project here. In this, many other problems could be triggered from community violence, peer groups, and family problems. And I did mention that earlier, about maybe 5 minutes ago. and I did describe conflicts I may have had as a doctoral fellow or a doctor in philosophy who had already earned a degree and were called to speak about some minor issue that I thought was just a minor issue to student affairs, and that's something that that I look forward to us speaking about in the future, because we must understand that once you are dealing with online doctoral students, I, for one, just to speak for myself, do not like to feel as though I'm in high school or in junior college, because I've already graduated these levels. So that's something that, I had a dispute about, and I'm just being honest and frank about it, because I don't like feeling as though I have to be that I need to be coached about something that's so small that appeared to be a junior level conflict, a high school level conflict. Okay, and this, many other problems, like I said, could be triggered from community violence, public corruption, loud music, harassment in, apartheid, boycotts, things like that. Being placed on a participation action research and you didn't know you were on it, you didn't conform to it, you never knew, and you find that people are talking about you and they're researching you in a study, and you're like, oh my goodness, who, why, what did I do? So these are problems that we will find in public corruption. And family problems are problems you have a divorce, or if you're not married, you might have problems in relationships. And I did mention that as well. The other portion of the unit of analysis, which are state or institution, meta-analysis, the studies must be located by use of a comprehensive research strategy that cross-examines registers of controlled trials, for example, randomized controlled trials and research designs. Meta-analysis is systematic and is the best quantitative approach to reach goals. How best to perform sensitivity tests. This is my finding. In other words, a researcher will have to make guesses of what is likely to impact society when performing research methodology. And I got that phrase from Mulroe, 1994, in the resources. I brought down A and B, 2 bullets. Be significantly true, and if there is a negative slope, the line will be downward and the hypothesis will not relate. B, the line is vertical or horizontal, which would be infinite. X and Y are unrelated if it's vertical or horizontal. So we have vertical would be up and down, and horizontal would be, I would say, east and west, or north and south would be vertical, east and west, horizontal. That would be an infinite. X and Y are unrelated. This means the hypothesis is untrue. And last, methodology 2. I'm just going to scan through this because I'm at the end here. I have the funding resources. Okay, you do have the bibliography of all the resources I use in this, and I think this would be it, right? This is it. This is it. I don't need to go through that. Okay, last. The Methodology 2 by Velma Blann. Data collection methods. The data collection used in this study is data sets and secondary sources. Data analysis. How data will be analyzed is from a mixed method, a qualitative/quantitative. These are mixed methods. Meta-analysis tests from 2 sampling types. The 2 sampling types are purposeful and random, or systematic and sampling. The examples of tests used in social, emotional, and development testing are triangle, explanatory, and exploratory methods. So we have social, emotional, and development, as I discussed, with human organization, having behavior problems, being stressed out, having conflicts in the neighborhood, or crimes of which might be related to homicides, or crimes related to someone self-defense. All of these different crimes are in the triangle, and developmental testing as the stages of social, emotional, and developmental testing are triangular. And so we need to explain it, meaning we need to let someone know, understand, well, why did you commit that crime? Well, what happened? And then exploratory methods is when we go out and we explore the environments, or we are observing that person, and we're getting a little bit more information. So when we're exploring on the outside external, from which we're comparing history or current data, or we will find groups that may be participants in large groups and sessions that might have more to say. So we are exploring these issues in different methods. Type of tests used in detail: Wolfram Alpha, 2009 city-by-city crime comparison, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. And Cape Coral had 2,414 total index crimes from January through June that year. In 2008, the city reported 2,732 crimes for the same period. Cape Coral recorded decreases in every major category except for robbery, which increased 5.7% from 53 to 56. Rape showed the greatest drop, with 7 rapes reported compared to 18 in 2008, a 61.1% decrease. And I received that information from capecoral.net, Government Police Department, Publications Forms, Crime Statistics, and I mentioned that instance in the literature review and articles. Triangle Mix Method is a design found from a journal article, FBI Supplementary Homicide Report, 1980 through 2008. The design method copied is columns and rows with given count rows. These given count totals are rows and column percentages of victims and offenders' age group. Now we have 12 to 14. We have that these are the age groups: 12 to 14. We have 15 to 17. We have age groups 18 to 24. And I did mention that these groups, 12 to 14 are youth crimes, 15 to 17 in junior high, 15 to 17 age group are high school and or 18, and then anywhere from 18 to 24 we have junior college. And with that, students are still dealing with more problems, with emotional problems, where we need to sit down and talk to a school counselor or a psychologist. We need to go to the principal's office, things like that, or the dean. And we will find that more crimes in that. You will not find these type of crimes in online studies, because a platform is already designed with the syllabic instructions. And you would then, I think that as a person of experience with online studies for more than now, 10 years, since 2003, we will find problems and conflicts with team projects. Team projects, that's where all the problems arise. And team projects is a major problems with online, whether you're undergrad or grad. You will have problems and conflicts with team projects, because we have some people who are very hostile. They do not want to share. They do not give you your working time, their working time, to compile it together, to find meaning, to discuss what we're going to submit together. So I do agree that team building is one of the problems we'll find in online, whether you're undergraduate, graduate, or doctoral person studying in the doctoral studies. But then we would then need what? Facilitation theories. We would need to study how to communicate with one another and deal with our own self-esteem, so that we will not feel like, oh, well, why does she want to lead? I think that I should lead because I think that I have more experience. So then when you lay on the table, when you first meet your skills, one should not feel like, oh, because I told you, because Velma told you I hold a number of years, maybe 10 years or more as a team leader. You should not feel threatened by me, because being a team leader for that many years, I want to make sure that the person which are leading me, that I know, that I understand what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, because I don't want our team grade to become a C, because I bring in A grades with teams. I have, a track record of that. So that's one of the conflicts that we will face in graduate studies or undergraduate studies. And it's very important when we are team building is to know that everyone has something to bring to the table. It has nothing to do with competition with one another, because when it's a group project, okay, we need to deal with that first as a group. That's team building. Then when the dynamic part of that is when we have assessed ourselves, now we have shared our data, now we split it up and work it together, and a successful outcome is at A grade. And that is something I learned through group dynamics, reading Daniel Levi's Team Building. And remember, a team competes against other teams. Groups work together for successful outcome for a win-win situation, as well as to be cohesive throughout the process, so that there will not be late paperwork sent in, that everyone will not receive lots of points because someone didn't call or someone didn't want to be on the team or thought someone needs to be dropped from the team. And that's something that should have been dealt with earlier during the project. So in the triangular method, as I mentioned, the results of the two, with age groups between 12 to 14, 15 to 17, 18 to 24, as well as crime types, year of incident, racial group, and whether random or personal crimes, the results of the two databases supported each other. And the second design was a graph indicating sample group violent crime index, Office of Juvenile Justice Department, 2000 year published, teenage homicide crimes between years 1980 through 2008 has reduced 5%. So the data set rows and columns collected reflect homicide totals between 2006 through 2008 current statistical reports. Number 2, explanatory methods can be retrieved from a publisher or journal. The author gives a valid reason why a qualitative follow-up component was favorable for use in the study, like going out and speaking to people in person, getting a social inquiry. Exploratory mixed methods design study are performed when there are intent to develop an instrument. And these instruments are data interpreters. Sometimes instruments are used in clinical study, or you might agree to go in and be studied for a week and they pay you, something like that. They explore your mind and they want to ask you questions and they compare that assessment with what you've told them. That is an exploratory mixed method as well. List and explain how the author developed the instrument. And so with that, that is what I had intended on with the mixed method, is having the explanatory methods and exploratory mixed methods, and to list and explain how the author developed the instrument. Validity and reliability. Validity is a degree which test measuring, and reliability is consistency of a test, survey, observation, or other measuring device. The FBI SHR database victim/offender homicide, age 12 through 14, I received 2.4%. Age 15 through 17, 21.2%. Age group 18 to 24, 76%. You see, so the older the student is, we will find their crime rate will be higher than someone which are between the ages of 12 and 14. They were found 2.4%. So it's just, I guess it's because, in having a problem is we grow older and we then sometimes build problems sometimes that are not there, or we feel stressed out and we lash out at people because they are lashing out at us, and in a non-communicative way or a verbal abusive way. Now, if a physical lashing would be a conflict, would be bullying, and then now we're afraid to fight back, or else we're going to get suspended from school or something like that. And I think that's where we have most of the problems with our youth, is fighting in school, or even fighting the teachers. I've seen some videos out there where teachers have been teachers were stricken with or saying things back to students, or hit them back and then hit the student back, and then now teacher lost her job, or said something and the teacher lost her jobs. Okay, so we're going to put this down, and last page, validity and reliability regarding age group 12 through 24, which are my dissertation study group, in-group, homicides committed around 1980 through 2008, with 76% homicides committed by respondents aged 18 through 24. Juvenile delinquents increase homicide at higher rate if behavior is not controlled before adulthood. And that's exactly what I had mentioned. We are then conditioned in a way, classical condition is where we learn from our grandmothers, or our grandmother brings something, to their grandchildren that she learned from her mother. And so that would be a classical conditioning of how to condition your children and to behave and to be respectful around adults and to say yes ma'am or no sir or yes sir. Juvenile delinquents increase homicide at higher rate if behavior is not controlled before adulthood. According to OJJDP, that's the Office of Juvenile Justice Office of Juvenile Justice Detention, that is in, I think it's in D.C. Okay, and affiliates. Both victim offender databases had significant relationship annually, but access to validity was impossible. Okay, the reason access to validity was impossible or were impossible are because the databases were so overloaded at Department of Justice or local police, local agencies, that they're still yet trying to figure out the crime rates between 2008 and now. Again, I did find us reporting at Lauderhill Crime Index in the local area indicated that 89% crime rate has increased between the years of 2000 up until 2013. And that's something that if you want to see proof of that, validity of that, I'll go ahead and attach that to the bundle that I'm going to send in tomorrow. Okay, we have here funding, in fact, within maybe the next couple of hours. And the funding sources, because it's now March 19, 2015, I'm sorry. The funding sources, we have Urban League of Broward County, Youth and Empowerment, Juvenile Prevention, Intervention, and Reversion Programs, $50,000 for a year. May 2012, this fund was available. Next, Department of Labor, solicitation for grant applications for serving juvenile offenders in high poverty, high crime communities, $100,000 for 2 years were offered April 12, 2011. In OJJDP, juvenile justice funding at federal level, comprehensive approach and research and crime prevention strategies offered $60,000 for 5 years, December 2002. So these are funding sources that I could consult once obtained a dissertation and approved to go out in the field by the review board to receive some help and workshop to seek and get funding. But right now, this is the funding is low. According to the qualifying exam, the funding is low, but we received funding over in funding were offered for the Syrian governments and Obama in helping the funding the missions where the Yazidis escaped their camps in order to receive safe haven and food and funding because they were trapped up in the hills over there. And President Obama was able to get a fiscal report between 2012 to 2015 being able to offer $187 million worth of funding to help these people who were attacked by the ISIL. And that concludes the dissertation proposal. And again, I do have some information which proves that I can defend the proposal because according to the N-Group 17, N17, we had the cities, all the cities in Broward County, Hollywood, Sunrise, Fort Lauderdale. We had locations in Wilton Manors, all of those locations. North Dade, I didn't do South Dade, and then Palm Beach, I only had Boca Raton. And I did defend it in writing. I do have here 88.91. It's now the regression analysis, Wolfram Alpha, and that is the B-slope regression is 88.91, and there is 89% of crime increase in Lauderhill, and that consists of Broward County, and I'll be very glad to show you proof of that once we do find the time to meet to discuss more in detail in person. As an online doctorate fellow, I just qualified and passed the exam on September 19, 2014. According to my grades, I submitted my exams on time, at 3:12 a.m., in which it was due at 8:59 a.m. on September 19, 2014. And I look forward to speaking to you further about any other concerns and questions that you may have. I do look forward to graduation date January 2016, and I will be in touch within the next maybe several hours to bring in the information that I was not able to hand deliver the binder to Dr. Facilitators, but I did attach it to my grading, and according to her exit interview with me over the phone, I believe it was November 12th, if not November 8th, that I did pass the program, and I am ready to go on to the online thesis writing. Thank you very much. Again, Velma Blann, and this video will be sent to you through, I'm going to make it private through YouTube, and it's for Anova Southeastern University, School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Conflicts Analysis Resolution Program Doctorate Study. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.